Hello, thank you for joining with me. We are in chapter 27 of A Course in Miracles, reading with the Course Companions group. Course Companions, correct? Healing the Ancient Dream. This is section 5, The Quiet Answer. If you'd like to join with me in prayer, dear Father, please enable me to set aside everything I think I know for an open mind and a new experience. Help me to be who you would have me be, do what you would have me do, go where you would have me go, and say what you would have me say, and to whom, dear God. God, please give me your vision today. Help me to be a conduit of light and love in this world. Thank you, God. Amen. The quiet answer. In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved. In conflict there can be no answer and no resolution, for its purpose is to make no resolution possible, and to ensure no answer will be plain. A problem set in conflict has no answer, for it is seen in different ways, and what would be an answer from one point of view is not an answer in another light. You are in conflict, thus it must be clear you cannot answer anything at all, for conflict has no limited effects. Yet if God gave an answer, there must be a way in which your problems are resolved, for what He wills already has been done. Thus it must be that time is not involved and every problem can be answered now. Yet it must also be that in your state of mind, solution is impossible. Therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already there. Such is the holy instant. It is here that all your problems should be brought and left. Here they belong, for here their answer is. And where its answer is, a problem must be simple and easily resolved. It must be pointless to attempt to solve a problem where the answer cannot be. Yet just as surely it must be resolved if it is brought to where the answer is. Attempt to solve no problems but within the holy instant surety, for there the problem will be answered and resolved. Outside there will be no solution, for there is no answer there that could be found. Nowhere outside a single simple question is ever asked. So nowhere outside a single simple question is ever asked. And we'll go down to footnote 23. This means that nowhere outside the holy instant is a single simple question ever asked. A simple question is purely a question. It asks for something that you do not know. This is in contrast to a double question, which includes the answer in the question. An example of a simple question would be, where can I go for protection? And back to the text. The world can only ask a double question with many answers, none of which will do. It does not ask a question to be answered, but only to restate its point of view. All questions asked within this world are but a way of looking, not a question asked. A question asked in hate cannot be answered because it is an answer in itself. A double question asks and answers, both attesting the same thing in different form. The world asks but one question. It is this: of these illusions, which of them are true? Which ones establish peace and offer joy, and which can bring escape from all the pain of which the world is made? Whatever form the question takes, its purpose is the same. It asks but to establish sin is real, and answers in the form of preference. Which sin do you prefer? That is the one that you should choose. The others are not true. What can the body get that you would want the most of all? It is your servant and your friend. But tell it what you want, and it will serve you lovingly and well. And this is not a question, for it tells you what you want and where to go to ask for it. It leaves no room to question its beliefs, except that what it states takes question's form. A pseudo-question has no answer. It dictates the answer even as it asks. Thus is all questioning within the world a form of propaganda for itself, just as the body's witnesses are but the senses from within itself. Footnote 24, 24:7. The body gives the eyes which you look on it, the hands that feel it, and the ears with which you listen to the sounds it makes. It proves its own reality to you. Thus is all questioning within the world a form of propaganda for itself, just as the body's witnesses are but the senses from within itself, so the answers to the questions of the world contained within the answers. So are the answers to the questions of the world contained within the questions. Where answers represent the questions, they add nothing new and nothing has been learned. An honest question is a learning tool which asks for something that you do not know. It does not set conditions for a response, but merely asks what the response should be. And no one in a conflict state is free to ask this question, for he does not want an honest answer where the conflict ends. God bless you. Only within the instant can an honest question honestly be asked, and from the meaning of the question does the meaningfulness of the answer come. Here it is possible to separate your wishes from the answer so that it can be given you and also be received. God bless you. The answer is provided everywhere, but it is only here it can be heard. An honest answer asks no sacrifice because it answers questions truly asked. The questions of the world but ask of whom is sacrifice demanded, asking not if sacrifice is meaningful at all. And so, unless the answer tells of whom, it will remain unrecognized, unheard, and thus the question is preserved intact because it gave the answer to itself. The holy instant is the interval in which the mind is still enough to hear an answer that is not entailed within the question asked. It offers something new and different from the question. How could it be answered if it but repeats itself? Therefore, attempt to solve no problems in a world from which the answer has been barred, but bring the problems to the only place which holds the answer lovingly for you. Here are the answers which will solve your problems, because they stand apart from them and see what can be answered, what the question is. Within the world, the answers merely raise another question, though they leave the first unanswered. In the holy instant, you can bring the question to the answer and receive the answer that was made for you. This is Robert Perry's commentary, day 316, section 5, The Quiet Answer. I've always felt that this is a real gem of a section. It returns us to the topic that was visited in the previous 2 chapters, problem solving. Specifically, this section is about finding answers to our problems. Given how rife with problems our lives are, if Jesus promises to tell us how we can find the answers, then we should sit up and take notice. Perhaps the reason why we are so beset by problems is that we tend to not really solve them. That is the clear implication of this section. And the reason we don't solve them is that we don't ask the right questions. Ask and it shall be given you may be true, but it implies that if you ask for the wrong thing, you get the wrong thing. You'll get the wrong thing. This section contains a penetrating, repetitive analysis of the kinds of questions we ask. The basic idea is that we ask double questions. Double because they contain both the question and the answer. They contain an answer in that they assume a perspective that should be set up for question. It's as if you are drinking yourself into an early grave and have consequently lost your job and your family. Your question should be how you can break free of your alcoholism, but instead you ask, should I choose Jack Daniels or Johnny Walker? Our questions are thus like the old loaded question, when did you stop beating your wife? They assume the very thing that should be up for question. In fact, what Jesus calls a double question here is what is often called a loaded question, a question containing a false or questionable assumption. That's the predicament we are in. Our questions assume the ego's point of view, and within that assumption, they merely ask the best way to achieve its goals. Jesus fleshes this out in more detail. Our questions basically ask, which illusion do I want and who needs to sacrifice so that I can have it? This question assumes that we do want illusions and that someone does need to sacrifice so that we can be happy. It assumes the very things that should be in question. We need to look at this with great honesty. How many of our questions throughout the day are basically this same question? Or perhaps more pertinently, how many of our questions are not this same question? The fact is that the answers we routinely come up with imply that this was our question. If our answers are, I want dinner from John, I want sex from Jane, and I want attention from Joe, then it's obvious that our question was, which illusion do I want and who needs to sacrifice so that I can have it? Could this be why our problems don't really get solved? Could we be constantly asking the wrong questions? What then constitutes a right question? A right question is wide open. It doesn't subtly fill the big answer and just leave the details up for grabs. A right question leaves everything up for grabs. It's reaching out for something genuinely new. It wants to know whatever is going to solve the problem, however fundamental the solution may be. Such openness can strike fear in us. We can all tell how politicians are afraid of real questions simply by how consistently they dodge them. Do we think that we are any different? Could their fancy footwork merely be a public display of how well we all handle questions in the privacy of our minds? According to Jesus, we are so thoroughly defended against real questions that we are not going to ask them in our current state of mind. Our normal state of consciousness is a question-free zone, free of real questions. All that's allowed there are answers. What we have to do, therefore, is take regular trips to another zone, to another state of mind. That other state is the holy instant, a place of stillness that we often touch when we meditate or do our workbook practice. That's where we need to go to find solution to our problems. It seems to me that we can discern a series of steps that Jesus is suggesting we take. 1. We enter a holy instant by stilling our mind. 2. We bring our problem into this stillness. 3. Ask a real no-holds-barred question. How can this problem be truly solved all the way down to its roots? 4. Listen in openness and quietness for the answer. 5. Discover that the answer is already there because in fact it has always been there. This can sound like too much work. The openness entailed can seem unsettling. Yet perhaps the fact that it's so different is precisely the most advantageous feature. Its most advantageous feature. Maybe it's time to quit our politician ways and start facing the real questions. And that is Robert Perry's awesome commentary on day 316, section 5, The Quiet Answer. I love you. Have a beautiful day.